Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! I got tons of stories of working for state parks, and this is a classic. So we are week 3 into a fire ban. There is a massive forest fire going on across the state. You'd assume, of course not, tourists have the reading comprehension of someone who drinks brake clean for that tingly taste. So I work with 2 rangers. One is from a foreign country, the other is native. So when someone bullcraps me about what the ranger said, I know it's not gonna be true. I enter the campground. Both bosses are out, but they have me on fire patrol and immediately fresh smoke fills my nose. I came upon this site, RV half-assed parked, older lady, 2 yap dogs, and husband who nurses beers. Hello campers, I'm here to inform you that we have a fire ban in place. Please put your fire out. The lady puts her dog down. No, the ranger said it was fine. I look at her, confused because both rangers are not only not okay with fires, but the native one's freaking wrist lands on fire, and he was adamant no fires. Here is the other thing. The fire ban is based off of what the county fire marshals say, and they say, no flamey boys. So, which ranger was it? I asked. I tend to confirm these things to be safe. He was a tall white man. There is no ranger that works here who looks like that. Also, fire ban is by county fire marshal discretion, not ours, and a fire ban statewide. Please put out the fire. She gets mad. Well, the ranger on the coast said, Miss, this isn't the coast. Please put the fire out. Furthermore, they are on a fire ban as well. I'm trying to save you a ticket here. She tells me to buzz off. You're just a toilet scrubber. Okay, game on, witch. Talked to the ranger who was in charge of our park, and he was on a day off. He was not happy about what was going on with this camper. So he got his uniform on, walked up. Hi, my employee asked you to put this fire out. The camper looked at him. No one came by. He said, well, if you're lying, this is a $5,000 fine, and also 5 years in jail. On top of that, I will have to summon DNR to put this out, which is also an additional $5,000 fine. She went flush, realizing I was saving her $10,000 and jail time. Come to think of it, an employee kinda came by, and he said something. We will put it out right now. My boss got back into his truck, went back to the station to drop everything off and told me what happened. The attaboy bit and went back to his day off. Next day we got a nasty gram from her, where she wrote this very long angry letter of how I'm lazy, stupid, fat, filthy, overpaid, and even insisted that the parks stop hiring mentally disabled people. Now I have autism. But you really wouldn't know unless you've been around me. But that kinda hurt. Well, she got banned from all the parks after this. Basically, the ranger runs your plates and you get a fine for trespassing. This happened in mid-2000s. I used to work at a housing facility for people who suffered mental illness. My shift was 4 in the afternoon to midnight. I had also graduated college when this happened and was off for 3 days celebrating with my family. Well, this story begins. Here is the cast. There is me, Karen deputy, client, midnight relief, high school deputy, and lead deputy. On to the story. I had just come into work on a Friday when my supervisor told me that I will be working by myself, which was not uncommon at times, but then told me that we had finally removed LD. LD was a name that I had given our most problematic client who refused to follow the rules, attacked both clients and staff, and was well known in the community as being a problem to people who were not white. I should also mention that I'm an African American, so the evening goes well. My clients come to the office, take their evening medication, sit and watch TV, and request where to go for their next shopping trip. Pretty much the best night ever. It was 11 p.m. and I was packing up to go home when I saw a deputy squad car pull up in our driveway. Not good. A few minutes later, the deputy, Karen, walks in looking very stern at me while I'm in the office. Behind her is a problematic client. Immediately, I pull out our record chart to take notes on what is about to go on. Karen asks, "Are you in charge here?" "No, officer. Can I help you?" "This lady says she lives here, but she says she's not allowed to come back here." Now, the officer must have been new because most of the deputies know about this client, and they know about their behavior. They also know our community's rules, seeing we are a private facility that has worked with them before. Nevertheless, I remind the officer that I am not in charge, but inform her that if this client was staying with us, then the removal was temporary and they could return after a few days. Karen says, "Well, that doesn't sound right. This client shouldn't be removed if they are unaware of their actions." "This decision was made by my supervisors, ma'am. I have no say in it." "Well then, I think you should admit them back." "I'm sorry, but I cannot do that. I do not have the authority to do that." "Well, call your supervisors." It was clear that Karen was not letting this issue go easily, so I called my supervisor. Mind you, it is going on 11:30 and they are asleep. But I call anyway and they answer. I explain what's going on and hand the phone to Karen. At this time, the midnight relief comes in and sees what's going on. They sit on a desk opposite of mine and listens as I explain what is going on. Karen hands me the phone and I talk to my supervisor telling me that everything is okay. "Do you have someone higher than them?" she asks me. Yes," I said, sounding a bit confused. "Call them. I don't agree with that one's answer." The midnight relief looks at Karen suspiciously as I call my boss's boss. After about the 8th ring, reminder of the time, now midnight, they answer. I explain the situation and hand the phone to Karen, who is once again told of our policies and that this certain client was not to return to grounds until a certain day. Karen hands me the phone and I'm instructed by my boss's boss to go home. "Is there someone higher than them?" she asks again. By this time, I am shocked. "Yes, but they are on vacation out of state." "Well, call them. I am not leaving till I hear something that makes sense." The midnight relief tells her, "Ma'am, you have talked to both of our supervisors and they have told you our policies. What are you looking for me to do?" "I want to know what gives you the right to kick someone out of a place when they clearly need help." Me grabbing my things and standing up. "Well, both supervisors have told you and I have orders to go home. If you like, you can come by tomorrow." And then Karen blocks the door and her hands reaching for her cuffs. "Then I will have to arrest you." Now, I have never been told that by the police before, and I'm in my early 20s. So, I'm practically scared. The midnight relief looking shocked and mad at this. "Ma'am, you cannot do that." "If he doesn't help in this, I will arrest him for non-compliance to my request. This place needs to be investigated." I immediately get on the phone and call our head of program. Once again, they are out of state on vacation, so it takes me several tries to get to them. Meanwhile, the midnight relief has called my supervisors who talked to Karen. Finally, my third supervisor is reached. Once again, I explain the situation and hand the phone to Karen. It is now 1 a.m. Karen soon hands me the phone. I'm thinking she got the answers, so now I can finally go home. I am calling for backup. Me and the midnight relief, in disbelief now, we ask, "Why? None of your supervisors understand that I have to report this as a crime. And you," pointing to me, "are the one I feel needs to be brought in for questioning." Karen walks out of the office and goes to that certain client, saying that everything will be fine now. A midnight relief is mad and calls our supervisors. I, on the other hand, am scared out of my mind. About 30 minutes later, another deputy's car pulls up. Karen walks outside. She sticks her head back into the building and tells me to come outside, and the midnight relief joins me. The new deputies arrive looking not too thrilled to be at our facility. One looks at me and immediately smiles. He says, "Hey, didn't we go to school together? How are you?" I'm scared. My high school deputy looks at me concerned and then at his supervisor, who I recognize as one who has dealt with this certain client before, and I breathe a bit. "What's going on here?" The lead deputy asks. Karen explains everything to him and how I was responsible for not helping in this investigation. After they were done, the lead deputy came over to talk to me. "Go gather your things, you can go home." What? Why? He was following orders. Plus I know this place and the residents here. They have set rules. And if this client doesn't follow the rules, which they don't, and we are called here daily for it, then they have the right to remove them. I am stunned for about a second but quickly run back into the office, grab my things and head into my car. The lead deputy and the midnight relief are talking as Karen approaches me. Karen looking at me as if I had just hit her car. "I will investigate this place, and if I had my way, you'll be in jail." My high school deputy was right behind her. He says to her, "The lead deputy wants to see you." Then he says to me, "Don't worry, the lead deputy was told what Karen did here. You are okay, and you did nothing wrong." After that night, I was investigated and found innocent. Karen, from my understanding, was suspended for her actions. A few months back, I shared a story from my former life as a journalist. I'm back now to share another. This one started about 15 years ago. I transitioned out of sport writing into news writing. At a small paper though, so occasionally I'd volunteer to cover a sporting event or two to help out and keep those skills up. I covered 2 events that first year, so not a lot, but one of them was a really good story. So I submitted it to an awards contest the next year and won. 2 days later, I got written up because I wasn't assigned to the sports department and therefore made our sports writers look bad by beating them for this honor. Flash forward about 3 months, between layoffs and a person quitting, the entire sports department is gone. And corporate hasn't authorized any hirings. They asked me to cover a few events a week until they replace the sports staff. I refuse, pointing out that I am not assigned to the sports department. They asked me to transfer to that short term. I said I'd consider it, but would not cover anything off of my news beat then, as I wouldn't be assigned to news. They ended up leaving me in the news department. I don't work there much longer before jumping to the other paper from my other story. Moral here is, while I love newspapers, corporate owners of newspapers are ridiculous. In the 1940s, Brazil was under a fascist dictatorship. In order to not be firebombed into oblivion by the US, our dictator Getúlio Vargas agreed to join the Allies against the Axis despite being basically a tropical version of Mussolini. Our labor code, for instance, is a servile translation of Mussolini's Carta del Lavoro. One of the consequences of us joining the Allies while also being a dictatorship was that the ban against speaking foreign languages in public punishable with prison, fines, and other penalties. The thing is, the southern corner of Brazil had an enormous immigrant population consisting of Italians, Germans, Poles, Ukrainians, and others who had arrived in waves since the late 1800s. There were lots of first or second generation immigrants who didn't even speak Portuguese. Heck, I was born in the late 60s and had schoolmates who only learned Portuguese in first grade. Back to the 40s. So the South basically had whole towns where almost nobody spoke Portuguese, and also where speaking anything but Portuguese was a felony. That gave the members of the police plenty of opportunities to collect bribes, and for regular people to screw with people they didn't like. My grandmother, for instance, lost her teaching job for speaking Polish and German with the kids to whom she was teaching Portuguese. She was denounced by someone who wanted her position. Chapter 2, where I finally get to the point. There was a family of German immigrants who owned a grocery store/bar and that also often held balls for the community, mostly shooting competitions and festivals. The community in this case being mostly German-speaking families, the police went to these balls and threatened to close the place and arrest the owners and party-goers, resulting in ending the ball and the cops collecting a substantial loot in bribes. The owners were thinking of ending the balls altogether but decided to throw a last one, with a twist. They let the community know about the ball and how it would happen, and then denounced themselves to the police via an anonymous tip. When the police arrived, they peeked through the windows in order to catch people speaking German to give them cause to storm the place and make some arrests to look good and bully the rest into buying their way out of jail. The problem was, nobody was speaking German. Actually, nobody was speaking anything. There was a band playing instrumental music with no words. The gentlemen gestured their invitations to the ladies and took them by their hands to the dance floor without saying a word. The patrons at the bar pointed at the bottles to order their drinks. Dinner was served in a buffet. Pen and pencils were available for the eventualities where gesturing could not solve. The ball went on all night and after some time the cops gave up and went home. The news of the resistance poll spread to towns nearby and was spoken of for many years. But after this one, there were no more balls until the war was over and the dictator fell. A little background on me. I used to get into a lot of trouble with a lot due to drug use and things associated with it, like possession charges and retail theft. So one day, while I was high as hell, I went to Kohl's and for whatever reason ended up stealing a belt. Yes, a belt. I know. What a waste of time and energy. But anyways, I walked out wearing it and was approached by a loss prevention officer who asked me to come back into the store, which I did. I was taken to their office and took the belt off. While in there, the girl who apprehended me asked for my ID, which I told her I did not have on me as it was in my car. At that point, I got up and just walked out of the office and headed towards my car. She pleaded with me to return, but I kept walking to my car and left. About 6 months later, my wife and I were planning to move, so I decided to call the sheriff's department just to check and see if I had any warrants. I was curious if charges were ever filed for the theft of the belt. And to my surprise, a lady told me I had 2 warrants. None for theft, but for misdemeanor battery. The girl I called said that I somehow touched or pushed her, which absolutely wasn't true, so I called my lawyer and she set up a time through the prosecutor for me to come to court and turn myself in. I was gonna go before the judge to get my bond set, then bond out. The plan was for me to arrive at the county jail between 3 and 4 a.m. the day of my court date because a judge wanted me processed in a system prior to going before him. It was mid-January in Illinois and it was extremely cold the morning of my court date. My wife and I drove to the jail after 4 a.m. and I had the doorbell to be let in. They buzzed me in and the officer met me in the lobby. He asked why I was there and told him the story and what my lawyer had set up. This is where it got weird. The officer started trying to talk me out of turning myself in. This was a $50,000 warrant and he started coming up with excuse after excuse for me to go away. There is not enough people there to process me, it only takes one. The floor is cold, I'll be waiting for hours to get it finished. I won't be able to sleep and so on. He did whatever he could for me to walk away. I was in shock and honestly don't think anyone would believe me had my wife not been there and had it not been video/audibly recorded. So, I went home and I went to sleep. That morning I ended up going to court and my lawyer was confused. He asked, "Why didn't you turn yourself in as planned?" I told her the story and she in turn told the judge and prosecutor. They were livid. They asked me who the officer was. Of course, I made sure to write his name down, and his supervisor was called to the courtroom. Turns out he had had some other issues and this incident was the last straw. He ended up getting suspended about a week later and I ended up having the charges dropped because they were false anyways. So happy ending all around.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.